Welcome to the December 8th, 2022 Ann Arbor Historic District Commission meeting. This meeting is being held in person and electronically via Zoom. Members of the public who would like to comment on hearings or other matters may do so by telephone only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 965-3669-9762. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city website and on the broadcast of the meeting on CTN Channel 16, AT&T Channel 99, and online at www.a2gov/watchctn. Ms. Thatcher, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Commissioner White. Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner Quijano. Commissioner Willis.
Here.
Commissioner Fortner.
Here.
Commissioner Ross. You have a quorum, and we're expecting one more.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. On to item C, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda that we have not yet received?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. The agenda is approved as presented. On to item D, public comment. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about an issue that is not listed as a public hearing on this agenda. To comment on such other preservation matters, please call 877-853-5247 and enter the meeting ID 965-3669-9762. Again, this information is displayed on the meeting agenda and video feed. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of your telephone number. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers indicating they'd like to speak for public comment?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. We'll now close the public hearing portion and on to item E, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. And on to item F, hearings. Our first hearing, F1, is 543 Detroit Street. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Sure. All right. Get the page to advance, we'd be all set. Here we go. All right, 543 Detroit. This is the circa 1850s Thorpe Frank House. It's one of Ann Arbor's oldest. This Greek revival was part of John Allen's and Elisha Rumsey's original plat of Ann Arbor in 1824. The 1853 plat map of the city shows the house on this lot, though its exact date of construction is unknown, and it could have been built as early as the 1830s. It's an upright and wing-style Greek revival with a 1 3/4 story main block and a 1-story wing that was added later, sometime between 1870 and 1888 per Sanborn maps. House is on the west side of Detroit Street, north of East Kingsley and south of North Division, Broadway East Summit, Giant intersection. And the application is seeking HDC approval to add a shed dormer, remove a pair of pre-1945 kitchen windows and replace them with a picture window on the rear elevation, add a slider with side lights and a 6-inch bump out on an exposed rear basement wall, add 2 coach lights on the rear elevation, and infill a front door with a casement window and a decorative panel below. So taking a look around the house here, you'll notice the porch is not original. It's been there since before the 1980s. I don't know when it was constructed, but it's a very modern design with those heavy square posts in pairs and triples. In a minute, we're going to talk about this door. There are 2 front doors, one leading into the wing and one leading into the main house block. This is looking at it from the south. There's also a side entry back here with another non-original porch. You can see there are some cool little knee wall windows up top. Most of the windows in the house have been replaced. The knee wall windows have not, nor have a pair of windows on the back that we're going to talk about in a minute. Here are 2 front doors again, and the north side of the house. There is the front door that's proposed to be replaced with a casement window and a wood panel below it to sort of simulate a window, and the door trim, simulate a door, and the door trim that's existing there is proposed to remain. This is the back of the house. This is the pair of windows that would be removed here. They are pre-1945 windows. The rest of these windows on the back of the house are modern. This was probably a single window that was made into a triple. This one has also been replaced. And then there's a window wall on the back that you'll see in a second. These are the kitchen windows proposed to be made much larger into a fixed picture window. And that's a 2003, I believe, modification that was made to the back wall of the wing with this large window wall put on it. This rear-facing wall was replaced. The rest of the house has a stone foundation, but this rear wall was replaced probably at the same time that this area was excavated in order to make a walkout here. So this is all CMU, and this is the area that's proposed to have a large slider installed. In a bump out, you can see how this is bumped slightly out here, and it would match, it would just go straight down with about a 6-inch bump out on this CMU wall. Okay. Proposal for the front, the only change is the addition of the dormer. The dormer is to give head height for a new bathroom. There's only 1 bathroom in the house right now. They'd like to put another one up on the 2nd floor. And the existing elevation is on the bottom without the dormer. This is the south side elevation. No changes are proposed here. And there are additional photographs, lots of them in the packet. This is the back of the house. The bottom is the existing conditions. You can see that CMU wall with the door, and this is the proposed new slider with side lights that matches the width and profile, I guess you would say, of the larger window wall above it. And these are the casement windows that are proposed to be replaced with a larger picture window on the back of the house. Then there are also 2 coach lights mounted on the house. This is a deck. The railing's not shown here, but you can see it here in the photographs. The lights would be to light the deck. This is the front door. It's proposed to have you can see it's a shortened casement window with a wood panel below. This is the basement lower level plan. Here's the new sliding glass door. This is the only change on this level on the exterior. This is the main floor plan. You can see the new picture window in the kitchen, which has been made a little bit wider. And here is the infilled door to window on the front porch. And this is the upper level plan where you can see the extent of the dormer and where the new bathroom would be. It's kind of hard to put a bathroom up here when you've got these large existing windows. Right now it's just all open. It's like a studio. So here's a rendering showing the dormer up top and the new window wall on the CMU foundation. There are window profiles in the packet. There are materials information in the packet. The new windows are proposed to be aluminum clad with a wood interior. And here's a rendering of the front of the house showing that dormer, and then showing the fixed casement window with a panel below. All right. From the Secretary of the Interior Standards, number 1 says a property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Number 2 says the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. And number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for roofs, it's recommended to design additions to roofs, such as residential office or storage spaces, dormers is what we're going for here, when required by the new use that they are inconspicuous from the public right-of-way and do not damage or obscure character-defining features. Not recommended is to change the configuration of a roof by adding a new feature such as a dormer so that historic character is diminished. For windows, it's recommended to design and install additional windows on rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by the new use. Not recommended is introducing a new design that's incompatible with the historic character of the building. It's also not recommended to change the number size. No, that one does not apply so much here. But it's not recommended to remove or radically change windows, which are important in defining the historic character of the building, so that as a result, the character is diminished. I'm sorry, that top one, changing the number, location, size, or glazing pattern of windows through cutting new openings, blocking in windows, and installing replacement sash, which does not fit the historic window opening, is relevant. Also not recommended is installing new windows, including frame, sash, and mutton configuration that are incompatible with the building's historic appearance or obscure, damage, or destroy character-defining features. From the guidelines for entrances and porches, it's recommended to identify, retain, and preserve entrances and their functional and decorative features that are important in defining the overall historic character of the building, such as doors, columns, sidelights, pilasters, and tablatures, etc. And from the Ann Arbor guidelines for lighting, it's appropriate to attach light fixtures so historic fabric is not damaged or destroyed. And for residential doors, it's appropriate to retain, repair, and maintain original doors, hardware, and trim, including transoms, sidelights, and surrounds. All right, let me give you some staff comments. The shed dormer, it's at the back of the roof. Changing the roof shape on this a house this old should not be approached lightly. The dormer will be visible from the street, but staff does believe it is inconspicuous from the public right-of-way. I'm not actually showing you the dormer right now. There it is up top. The picture window. The existing pair of casement windows are from the period of significance. They're proposed to be replaced by a 35-inch by 88-inch fixed picture windows. Residential picture windows are usually associated with the second half of the 20th century. They're not appropriate on even the rear elevation of an 1850s Greek revival home. This house has had a lot of window changes, mostly during the 2003 remodeling, when the Old Fourth Ward Historic District didn't regulate work on the back of the house. It was much like the Old West Side Historic District. The pair of kitchen windows may be the only original windows left on the rear elevation and should be preserved. Staff believes the picture window is incompatible with the building's historic appearance and destroys character-defining windows. Moving on to the slider on the back. It's proposed to be installed in the CMU basement wall. Adding a window on this modern wall is appropriate since no historic materials will be removed. The window wall pops out 6 inches to align with the windows above on the first floor. Coach lights, staff has no objections to as long as the fixtures are small and the work is reversible and does as little damage as possible to the exterior of the house. The infill front door, this door is likely what's called a casket door. It was often easier, instead of having to bring your casket through the front door and then make a bend and then to get it into the parlor, they would just have an extra door there and you could bring the casket up onto the porch and it would be a straight shot into the front parlor. So removing a historic door is not appropriate and replacing a door with a window is not compatible with the historic structure. And this front door in particular is important in defining the overall historic character of the building. We don't know its age. We don't know if it was added in the 1880s when the wing was built or if it's older than that, but nevertheless, it's clearly from the period of significance. So staff has suggested two motions that you can take or leave. The first one is for work that staff considers appropriate, the dormer slider and outdoor lights. And the second is for work that staff considers inappropriate, removing the front door and replacing a pair of windows with a large picture window. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioner, myself and Commissioner Willis were on the review committee. Did you want to start, or do you want me to start? All right. Where to begin? So I think, for the most part, the modifications are, I think, within the guidelines, except for the ones that staff has pointed out. I think the house was fairly well maintained, and we did notice some issues on the siding. I think needs some paint and repair, and especially there's some trim pieces on the back that needed to be replaced. But in general, I think, you know, the main portion of the house, the contributing structure is very clearly, you know, maintaining a lot of its historic character with especially with the smaller windows on the south side of the home, and that Greek Revival style, the small nature of the two stories itself, and the roof peak. So I think there's a lot of features that are still here that are still definitely contributing and character defining. And then there's all these other, like the addition, and then some of the work that's on the back starts to, I think, maybe erode that a little bit. So I think that's where I agree with staff on her comments about the front door and the windows on the rear, that it starts to, there's that point at which some of these replacement items, we start to question, you know, where that character defining features, how they start to peel back, and we lose some of those features of the house. I would say I would agree with staff on the slider door in the rear on the basement. It's all CMU. There's really nothing original there. The foundation on the west side of the home, or the north side, it's all covered in stucco, but you don't see any of that the original stone. But none of that would be impacted. And then the dormer. Yeah, it would be, I think, visible from the sidewalk, but I think it's in the rear. It's placed appropriately for, I think, what is proposed, and it sits behind even the wing addition, which is still within the period of significance. So that's my report.
I definitely agree with the staff report and with your comment. My one thought was about the casket door on the front porch. I felt like that would be a change that would change the historical front-facing value of the building. But the dormer, which I was a little concerned about, definitely is less conspicuous than I thought it would be.
Thank you. Would the applicant either step forward? Thank you. State your name and address, name and address for the record. Do we have a sign-in sheet?
We don't.
Okay.
I'll get one.
Okay. Jill will get a sign-in sheet for you. And you have up to 5 minutes to speak about anything that wasn't mentioned in the staff report, or if you'd like to address anything else.
Okay, my name's Jimmy Bevilacqua. I worked with the homeowner to design this. My address is 1311 West Huron Street.
Okay. Thank you.
So the one thing that I would question a little bit is just the window on the back for the kitchen. The homeowner, I talked to Jill about certain things. We had looked at this picture window, and the homeowner felt very important, or she was pretty adamant that this is a part that she wanted. It was on the back of the house. The concession was not doing an addition. Essentially, we talked about, although we didn't draw anything, is kind of extending off the back of the house. Thank you, Jill. And putting a larger kitchen in, and potentially like a larger bathroom on the second floor. And but she really wanted to open up to the backyard. The backyard's a big feature for her in excuse me, in the house. And so, going back and forth a couple times with a couple of different, let's say, window configurations, she felt pretty strongly about keeping kind of the picture window as it was the compromise of, let's say, not proposing an addition off the back, which would lose the windows anyway. And, whether it was an appropriate designed addition, it would still lose the windows. And if the windows are what we're saying are kind of the historical defining characters of the house, when every single operable window in this house has been replaced, and there's the modern window wall on the back. It just, I take a little bit of an issue to that. I understand the point. I just think that it's a wall that nobody sees from the street. And they are, in my mind, if you had kind of the more defining windows were, the double hungs that have all been replaced. So, I for the door up front, really it's just a question of there's 3 first floor doors on a tiny house, and there's 2 that are right next to each other. And so we were trying to basically preserve the look and make it that it's easily reversible by framing in a window with a kind of a panel, trimmed out panel underneath that would replicate the look of the existing storm doors, and add a little bit more insulation value. I mean, currently, the previous homeowners had a curtain in front of, this door just to try and, keep the draftiness, from being a problem. So I think though, I mean, if we looked at the 2, I guess, objections, I know that the homeowner feels a lot stronger about the window in the back than the door in the front. So.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I had a quick question.
Sure.
What is the, this is on a non-contentious part of the house, but I was just curious, what is the material that's surrounding the door wall that's going in underneath the other window?
Yeah, and so, let me just go through it. It would be, a wood trim to match what's above it, and wood trim paneling. Potentially, I would think above, we made, like the kind of the panel above the door.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I think that would not, I think we would go for a fiber cement there, kind of a hardy board, smooth, for that kind of series of paneling right there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'll open the public hearing portion for this item. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application at 543 Detroit Street. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 and entering meeting ID 965-3669-9762. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers for public comment?
We do not.
I'll close the public hearing portion for this address. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Rockland, go for it.
Should I make the motions as written here? Do you feel like that's a good way to go?
Whatever motion you would like to.
Okay. Well, this seems like as good as any. Okay, so this first motion is for the dormer, the slider, and the outdoor lights.
Okay.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the portion of the application at 543 Detroit Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to add a shed dormer on the rear of the second floor roof, add a slider with side lights in a 6-inch bump out on an exposed rear basement wall, add 2 coach lights on the rear elevation. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for roofs, windows, and lighting. And this interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for roofs and windows. Anyone?
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner Fortner. Is there a discussion on the motion?
Sure. Well, I agree with the staff report for these three items here. I do question the dormer, and I think the staff report did as well, just really thinking like, is this okay to do on this particular house, just because it is so iconic. The shape of that house with the two-story front and the wing. So it's good that the dormer is in the back. Clearly, that's really the only thing that is allowing this to be approved, although, you know, it wouldn't be in the front anyway. But that helps. It's reversible, clearly, so that helps. And I think if I could choose between a dormer and an addition, I would choose the dormer. So all of those three things are saying that I'm in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Anyone else? You ready for a vote on this motion? Right. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes. Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. All right, we have another couple of items to discuss. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion on either the one that's presented or the other items?
I mean, I'm happy to keep
Go
going
for it.
here. Okay. Okay, so this is convert front door to window and rear windows to picture window. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the portion of the application at 543 Detroit Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to infill a front door with a 2-foot 8-inch by 4-foot 5-inch casement window and with a decorative panel below, and to remove a pair of non-historic kitchen windows and replace them with a 2-foot 11 by 7-foot 4 picture window on the rear elevation as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to their surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for windows and residential doors, and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for windows and entrances and porches. Yes?
Commissioner Rockland, would you strike the word "non" from non-historic kitchen windows?
A pair of non-historic
Those
kitchen
are-
windows. That should read a pair of historic kitchen
Yes.
windows. Thank you for catching that.
Do we have a second on the motion?
A second.
Right. Moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner Willis. Discussion on this motion.
You can go first if you have something, or I
I
can
don't have
go.
anything just yet.
Okay,
I'm
well, I'll go
considering.
then. Well, taking the front door first, I feel like the standards are very clear for me with the front door, that it's not allowable in this case. It's not appropriate, I should say, to remove an existing historic front door. I empathize with having 3 exterior doors, and actually maybe more, including some back doors there, in this tiny house. But I've heard it as a coffin door, but casket door, I guess it's probably the same thing.
Funeral door?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It goes by very similar names, I guess. But anyway, yeah, it's an iconic piece of, it's a character-defining piece of this house. So I feel like that is inappropriate. And for the rear window, I have a couple thoughts on that. I think that what's key to this is that it is a historic elevation of the house. It's not on an addition. Like a picture window, a window that dimensions, let's just say, it could be operable or whatever, or just like a long modern window I think could work on an addition or on a, somehow like the sliding door wall and still work somehow with this house, but it doesn't seem appropriate on a historic elevation of the house, even though it is in the rear. So the modernness of that window itself is not appropriate for me. I do question that the casement windows that are there, I wonder if those are, clearly they're historic. I'm kind of curious about why those are there. And they look like they weren't part of the original house because of how they're trimmed out. Like the siding, like all the other windows in the house, you know, the siding's just perfect where the line of the siding lines up perfectly with the top of the window and perfectly with the bottom of the window. And if you look at almost every historic house in Ann Arbor, they were that careful, you know, when they put those windows in. But for whatever reason, those aren't lining up at all. So it's just a curious thing about that. And there's really nothing, maybe you can make a guess that that wasn't the original location or not, but those windows themselves are obviously pre-1945. I guess I might support a window opening, like a more appropriate window opening in that rear facade that was more historic. But I don't think that the picture window is appropriate. Whether or not, taking aside the issue of is it appropriate to remove these historic windows. I don't know if we even need to talk about that. If we don't like the picture window, is what I'm saying.
It might be good to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the applicant might be led to believe that a different window would be an appropriate replacement there.
Right, yeah.
So if you have feelings about that.
I think if there's more information on those windows, like I'm noticing that they're not, aligned to the siding in like a typical way. So if there, you know, maybe some selective demo or something, or I don't know. But I would be amenable to hearing more information about these windows if there's a different strategy for putting something modern in that location. But as proposed, I'm not supporting it. Okay.
Thank you.
But can I just?
Yeah, let's talk about
Those
that.
are windows from the period of significance.
Correct.
They are.
So there's no way those could be changed without removing historic material.
Right.
So there's no way that removing those windows would meet the guidelines. Unless we got information that said they weren't historic windows
Right.
from the period of significance.
Correct.
I mean, you could build an addition behind the house and remove the windows, and we would approve it.
Yeah, that's.
So I'm just saying, yes, and
Right,
there's
but the-
circumstances, yeah, okay.
It is an argument, I think, with a slippery slope to say that, yes, they can come and do that. And I totally agree, and I had the same thought.
Yeah.
But that isn't what's proposed, and I agree that what is proposed is the picture window itself is not appropriate, especially in its size and scale and its patterns, and it's not appropriate to, as Commissioner Fortner just stated, remove original windows and historic material. So I think that we're looking at what's proposed, and this is, I don't think it meets the guidelines, as was stated. Are there any other discussion points? Is everybody ready for a vote? I gotta check this. Wording of the motion. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes. All of those opposed, please say no. No. Right. The motion for the dormer, slider, and outdoor lights has been approved. The motion to convert the front door window and two-way window and rear windows to a picture window has been denied. Thank you. On to item F2, 425 second. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
.425 Second Street is in the Old West Side Historic District. It's a two-story Italianate that features a hip roof, decorative eave brackets, and symmetrical windows. Has a one-story addition that wraps around the east or rear and north side elevation. It's been there since the period of significance. Modern changes to the house include an enclosed front entry, aluminum siding, and a half-height imitation stone on the front facade. It appears in the 1894 city directory as number 19 Second Street and is likely older. The occupant that year was named Feldhauser, and that name appears through at least the 1930 city directories. It's on the east side of Second Street, south of West William and north of West Jefferson Streets, and the applicant is seeking HDC approval to demo an existing rear deck and build a new 675 square foot two-level deck. All right. So the front of the house, this house used to be white. I really love the new color that they painted it because it makes the brackets really pop and make it much more Italianate-y. This is the front of the house. You can see the one story there on the left. It is old, and it wraps around the back. Now we're moving around the south side into the backyard. This is a modern structure. It is kind of crazy. It's a stone wall that a previous owner built with a slab of concrete on top of it to enclose a stair down to a basement, to a basement door. And you never know what you're going to see in the backyards in the Old West Side. Over here on the right is the deck that we're going to talk about. There it is. This is an existing deck that would go away, be replaced by a new deck that's at this height so that you can walk out of this existing rear door, and then it would step down to a larger deck that is out here in the yard behind the fieldstone wall. And it would have a hole in the middle of it for this pine tree. And when we were on site, the property owner was describing to us how the deck would be installed in such a manner as to damage the tree as little as possible, and they will try to locate footings for the deck around roots that are smaller than 6 inches. So we were glad to hear that consideration had been taken for the tree's longevity. Here's another picture of the little deck that would come off. And you can see how close the tree is there. These are just some pictures looking on the left, looking south to the neighbor's house in the distance over here. It's a big lot. It's a original platted lot, so there's a lot of room on the side here. And then this is looking north. This wall is on this property, not surprisingly. And beyond it, you can see how the neighbors have a sort of a similar two-level deck, though this one will be a little bit closer to the ground that's proposed. Here's the back of the house. This is where the existing door is. This is the smaller deck, a couple steps down to a larger deck with the tree well in the center. The steps here get you underneath that enclosure for the basement stairs. And then there are various steps off so that you can have access to the yard. The decking is Trex, the framing is wood. And you can see that the rails, the guardrails, are modern design with probably aluminum balusters. And really, since this is a back deck in a backyard, staff does think that that's appropriate. And here's a drawing. The deck is the width of the back of the house. It's as historic district decks go, it's huge. But it's also completely reversible. And I appreciate how low it is. It's only 2 steps down, which means that it's going to be a lot less obtrusive than a deck that's high off the ground and is You can really see it from your neighbors' yards. Let's see, it is freestanding, which does meet the design guidelines. And I've already read to you Standard 9 and Standard 10. The design guidelines for the district or neighborhood setting not recommended is introducing new construction that is visually incompatible or that destroys historic relationships within the setting. It's recommended for building site to retain the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space. And from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for decks and patios, it's appropriate to install a deck in the rear of the property that is subordinate in proportion to the building, to install a deck that is freestanding so it does not damage historic materials, and to install railings made of wood. Custom railing designs will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. It's also appropriate to use railings that have a chamfer top and bottom rail and simple square around spindles that are attached to the underside and top of the rails, and installing flooring made of wood or composite wood.
Is that everything?
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry, one
No,
second.
you're good.
1 second. I'm just scanning to make sure I didn't
I
miss
didn't think you were
anything.
done.
The deck's approximately the footprint of a large two-car garage. Staff does appreciate that they're trying to save the large pine tree, which was not there in 1947, so there's nothing historic about the pine tree. They just grow really fast. And staff does believe that the deck meets historic preservation design guidelines and will not detract from or compete with the appearance of the historic home or other historic buildings in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Willis and myself were on the review committee. Would you like to give your staff, or give your review committee report?
I totally agree with the report that was put together, and I think it'll be invisible from the street and a perfect use of the available space for the family and for their home.
Thank you. I also agree with the staff's report and Commissioner Willis. The backyard is quite large. The deck, actually, there's still going to be ample, free yard space available, even with the deck installed. You can see from the photo on the screen that the backyard actually dips down from the front. So I think that, and along with the lower height of the deck, even though it is, is pretty expansive in the width of the house and it's a large deck, I think it will be pretty much inconspicuous, and I think it fits within the guidelines. Right. Would the applicant step forward if you're here, or?
I'm trying to promote the
Okay.
to panelist, Dan Sherman
Okay.
doesn't want to be promoted. Oh, there it goes. All right, Dan, whenever you're ready, you can,
Dan,
there
if
you
you.
go.
Hi, Dan, can you just state your name for the record and address, and then you have up to 5 minutes to speak if you'd like to add anything to the staff report or review committee report.
Sure. So it's Daniel Sherman at 425 2nd Street. We're just very happy to hear the sort of that the Historic Commission agrees that it shouldn't detract from the house. That we're trying to take into consideration the large tree that I understand isn't part of the isn't relevant, sort of, but we think it makes the house feel a little bit older and fit in the neighborhood. We're excited to have a deck that's useful. The one that's there currently is dilapidated and not super safe, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Nope. Okay. I will now open the public hearing portion for the item at 425 2nd Street. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any callers for public comment?
I don't see anyone. Keep in mind, participants, that if you want to speak, please raise your hand by hitting *6. Is
Star 6.
that right?
Star 9?
Star 9 unmutes. Actually, you just do it by pointing to yourself in the meeting. Sorry, that's if you call in by phone, it's *6.
Okay. So if you would like to speak about 425 2nd, you can press star 9 on your phone. No
Okay,
callers?
nobody.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Fortner?
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 425 Second Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to demo an existing rear deck and build a new 675-square-foot two-level deck as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for residential decks and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 9 and 10, and the guidelines for district, neighborhood, and setting.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner Rockland. Is there a discussion on the motion? Anything to add?
I think it's been said.
Yes.
You guys both said it
Agreed.
nicely, yeah.
Right. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All of those opposed, please say no. Right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work on your project. Thank you. All right, on to item F3, 718 Lawrence. Ms. Thatcher, will you please give the staff report?
Dan, I think you're going to need to remove yourself from the meeting. All right, 718 Lawrence. This well-cared-for 2.5-story first appears in city directories in 1911 as the home of Mrs. Anna Newbold and students Alfred and Grace. It features a hip roof with front and rear clipped gables, shingle-sided dormers with corner returns, and a smaller dormer on the west side, wide board trim beneath the eaves, wood-lap siding, a bay window on the west elevation's first floor, an original front door and leaded glass in the large street-facing window under the porch, full-width front porch with tapered round columns and turned balusters, diagonal lattice skirting, and a stone foundation. Staff approved repairs to the fire escape in 2019 and a new roof in 2010. And the house is located on the south side of Lawrence Street, east of North State and west of North Thayer Streets. The applicant seeks after-the-fact HDC approval to replace 17 non-original wood windows with Anderson 400 series insert windows that are Fibrex-clad wood. The work was done in 2015. A rental inspector was on the property in May of 2022 and flagged these windows for being installed without permits. The owner quickly got in touch with the historic preservation staff and applied to the commission for a certificate of appropriateness for the windows that were installed. Most of the windows in the house were replaced by the owner with hand-built pine windows in 1987. That's when the original sashes came out. The new sashes used the existing pulley system but were not meant as a long-term installation. And in 2015, a contractor replaced the 1987 windows with the Anderson Fibrex clad windows. A work narrative and photos of the installed windows are included with the application. And since the windows that were replaced were not historic, this application is for a change of materials from wood windows to clad windows. In addition to the 17 windows in the application, there are 5 original wood windows that remain, as well as 2 existing non-original replacements. The large front window, which I'll show you in a sec, which has the most historic character because of the leaded glass transom, was not replaced. So this is looking at the house. It's extremely well maintained. It's one of those rental properties that doesn't look like a rental property, which I always appreciate. Here's the very cool front door and the leaded glass window on the front under the porch. The windows that were installed, this is a representative one. They're Anderson 400 series, which are commonly used when clad windows are allowed as replacements. One modification that the property owner made that's quite interesting is because the clad windows have this extra seam that makes them look more aluminum or more, Fibrex-y. he's put this oak trim piece over the top of it in order to make it look more traditional. He's done that on a handful of the windows, not all of them, but has proposed that he's amenable to doing it on the other ones as well. I think that that's a great idea, and it really does make the windows look better. This is an interior and an exterior view of one of the windows. This was in the application materials, and this one does have the extra trim piece. And I think that it does make a difference. This is just the screen that you're seeing here with the smaller edge. On the interior, they are wood windows. There's some fairly compelling information in the application that I didn't repeat verbatim in the staff report, but no historic windows or doors were affected by this work. It is a code case because the work was done without approvals, so the code language is in the staff report. And from the Secretary of Interior standards, I've already read 2 to you. Number 5 says that distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. And I have read 9 and 10 to you. So the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for windows, it's not recommended to change the historic appearance of windows through the use of inappropriate designs, materials, finishes, or colors, which noticeably change the sash, depth of reveal, and muntin configuration, the reflectivity and color of the glazing, or the appearance of the frame. It is recommended to replace in kind an entire window that is too deteriorated to repair, using the same sash and pane configuration and other design details. If using the same kind of materials is not technically or economically feasible when replacing windows deteriorated beyond repair, then a compatible substitute material may be considered. And that's what is before you here today. It's not recommended to remove a character-defining window that it's unrepairable and blocking it in, or replacing it with a new window that does not convey the same visual appearance. These window standards are a little bit tricky to apply because you have to remember that the windows that came out, the sashes were not original sashes. Design of missing features. It's recommended to design and install new windows when the historic windows are completely missing, which again is not completely true here. Replacement windows may be an accurate restoration or be a new design that is compatible with the window openings and the historic character of the building. It's not recommended to introduce a new design that is not compatible with the historic character of the building. And finally, from the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for Windows, if a window is completely missing, replacing it with a new window based on accurate documentation of the original, or a new design compatible with the original opening and the historic character of the building. Materials other than wood will be reviewed by the Commission on a case-by-case basis. All right. So if the Commission finds that the work is not appropriate and denies the first suggested motion, which is a motion to approve the work, the second motion orders the work to be reversed and wood windows based on the existing historic windows to be installed. Mostly based on some recent HDC decisions about aluminum-clad windows on historic buildings. I'm not particularly concerned about these windows that were installed. It's not ideal to be reviewing them years after the fact. But I think that with the modifications to the frame, that's about as good and close a design as you're going to get to a historic window using a clad window, because the glass is recessed to the appropriate depth, so they will have shadow lines that are similar to the originals. It's not a perfect match, and I'm not thinking about what might have happened had this come in first, because it didn't. It's here and it's done. But I do appreciate that the house is extremely well cared for. The rent is below average and has been kept that way since the 80s. And it'll be interesting to hear from the applicant. But there were some additional materials that came out this week that I hope you've had a chance to review that came via email. So this is not an application where I'm falling on my sword to make the work be reversed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Great. Commissioners Willis and myself were on the review committee. Go ahead. I agree with staff's assessment and staff's report. It's always unfortunate when we review work that's already been completed without a certificate of appropriateness. It does make it difficult to, to assess, and it's not something we like to have to do to go back and review. I do think that the report that was provided with the history of the house, the history of the windows, has been extremely helpful, especially having, the same ownership. They have the knowledge of what was there, what was replaced initially, and what came after the second replacement. I do think that the replacement seems to be that it was considered. We don't know what the original windows looked like. I believe they were double hung on the house of this, it fits with the other windows, the original windows that are existing. So I do think that the configuration, the pattern of the windows is appropriate. I think that, again, we've looked at wood windows with cladding previously and composite cladding, and I think that, these are windows that we have approved in the past that I think would be, that are appropriate. So I think everything that staff presented, especially with the care to even go back and put on the trim and to make them look even more considered and not necessarily from the period of significance, but at least paying attention to the detail and what that, that trim piece would look like, I think is important. So I'm inclined to support the application. Commissioner Willis?
Agree 100%.
Okay. All right, would the applicant, if you're in here, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. There's a sign-in sheet as well if you can get your name. And you have up to 5 minutes to speak if you'd like to add anything.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I really don't have much to add. I do want to say that, I acknowledge that I made these changes without consulting this commission. In hindsight, that was a mistake. I apologize for that. Over the ensuing months, I've become to appreciate the commission more, and in listening to this. I purchased this back in '86, and I was a younger person, had about a lot of time on my hands. So, it was really refreshing to take this home that I don't think had been treated very well and actually turn it around a fair amount. The windows that I believed were in decent condition, they're still there because, frankly, it was less work to leave the good ones there. The ones that were not in good shape, I happened to work for the University of Michigan, and they used to have a student wood shop, which I leveraged quite a bit. I didn't have a wood shop of my own, but I used that to fabricate things such as these windows. So at any rate, I appreciate the opportunity, and if you had any questions, I'd be happy to try to respond.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing portion for the application at 718 Lawrence. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 and entering meeting ID 965-3669-9762. Please press star 9 if you would like to speak. Do we have any callers?
We do not.
All right, I'll close the public hearing portion. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Willis.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 718 Lawrence Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to replace 17 post-1945 wood windows with clad wood windows as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the surrounding resources, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District guidelines for windows and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, in particular, standards 2, 5, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for windows.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Willis, seconded by Commissioner Rockland. Any discussion on the motion?
I'll just say that I agree with what's been said before, so I won't repeat it, but just one part of it is what you said about the owner providing all of the history in a very well-documented report helped me as well a lot with this proposal, because it's not so cut and dry, and you got to get into the details about what is going on, and that report was very helpful.
Agreed. Thank you. Right. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes?
All of those opposed, please say no. Right. Your application has been approved. Thank you. Now on to item F4, 320 South 7th Street.
320 South 7th Street is in the Old West Side Historic District. This is a 2.5-story gable fronter that features wide board trim under the eaves, shingle cladding in the gables, and lap siding on the lower floors. The hip roof front porch is about 2/3 width. Porch posts are tapered round columns, and the front door appears to be original. There is a single-story bump out on the north elevation and a 1.5-story rear wing. What was originally a covered rear porch on the southwest corner of the house, per the Sanborn map at the end of this report, has been expanded south into a screen porch. The house was first occupied in 1920 by Herman Grieve, a bookkeeper at the Crescent Works, manufacturers of high-grade and custom corsets and waists. Greaves lived in the house through at least 1940. And the site is on the west side of South 7th Street, south of West Washington, and north of West Liberty Street. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to add a rear addition. This is one where I handed out at the meeting the updated staff report. Apologies to everyone involved that the original one in the packet was incorrect. It was just an incomplete version. All right, this is the front of the house, walking around. This is the south side of the house. It's largely intact. It's had fairly few modifications made to the house. There's the bump out on the north side along the driveway. You can see the shingles up in the gable. There's a garage that appears on Sanborn maps. That's therefore assumed to be from the period of significance as well. This is walking around the same north elevation of the house. On the left is the back side of that bump out. And this is the rear wing. Has a door that we'll get to in a second that had an unfortunate basement wall problem. Here's the door. This wing is fairly out of sight from the road. You can't see that door when you're standing out on the sidewalk. This is the back of the house and the back of the garage. You can see the gable here. It's been modified. There's a triangular window up here. I don't know if these windows were in an original opening or not. And there is a dormer that was added on in order to make this half-story more usable. Then this used to be just a walk-in porch, covered porch, and it was bumped out to make a screen porch. Here's the screen porch and the dormer up above. This is looking into neighbors' backyards. This is looking south. 2 doors down, this is an addition that was approved by the commission just a couple of years ago. And looking to the north, there's a non-contributing structure, and then we have Waterworks Park just beyond that. On the interior, when the basement walls were replaced sometime in recent history, they missed the landing with the door. I'd love to know who this basement contractor was. Someday I'll ask. So part of the proposal is to move the basement, to move the door opening to the left here so that it aligns with the landing instead of hanging out into space when you open the door. All right, existing site plan, 1.5-story wing on the back and the existing garage. Proposed is to add a 2-story addition on the back and to add a 2nd story on top of the 1-story. So that half-story with the wall dormer would be removed, the shed roof dormer. And there's a small 4-inch indentation here at this corner. And you can see how it sort of wraps around the garage. There's 3 feet here from wall to wall, so you could walk through, maybe not with a ladder, but you could walk through. And the eaves are very close, as you can see from this. Window well for the new basement to get light and egress. And the existing 1-story porch stays, and then the new addition sort of wraps around it and has its own side-facing gable. This is the basement plan, expansion of the basement foundation. Here's the first floor, existing floor plan. Here's the proposed floor plan. You can see this is the line where the addition starts and the rear wing ends. This is the 2nd floor. This is an eave overhang from the existing rear wing that you'll see in a sec on the elevations. Here's the front of the house. This is the 2nd-story addition on the back, that side-facing gable. The north elevation of the house, here's the 1-story bump out. Behind it here is where the door would be shifted in order to match the landing. And this is the new addition on the back. It is 3 feet below the ridge, which is very appropriate because that'll preserve the wide board trim and then some. This piece of eave here is preserved, and then, like I said, there's a 4-inch corner indent here before we get to this larger wall going back. From the back, here's that little piece of trim and that back corner, but you've lost all record of what this rear 1-story wing looked like from the back, which is of concern to staff. And then on the other side, similarly, there's no record left of the wall or the pitched roof back here that there was a gable. This is the roof to the screen porch. So this wall is all entirely new and extends out into this 2-story piece. From the Secretary of Interior standards, I've already read to you numbers 2, 9, and 10. From the building site, it's recommended, it's not recommended to introduce new construction onto the building site which is visually incompatible in terms of size, scale, design, materials, color, and texture, or which destroys historic relationships on the site. It's recommended to identify, retain, and preserve buildings and their features, as well as features of the site that are important in defining its overall historic character. So my concern is that that rear wing is original to the house, pre-1945, and that this feature has not been retained and preserved, and you can no longer identify where it was. Not recommended is to introduce new construction which is visually incompatible in terms of size, scale, design, materials, color, and texture, or which destroys historic relationships on the site. This is where staff believes the the historic relationship between the house and the garage may come into play. The garage is not currently 36 inches from the house, so that relationship has been lost. I'm not saying that it needs to stay the same as it is now, but there's certainly some space between the two that this proposal would completely infill. From the guidelines for additions, it's recommended to construct a new addition so that there's the least possible loss of historic materials, and so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. It's recommended to locate the exterior addition at the rear or on an inconspicuous side of the historic building, and limiting its size and scale in relationship to the historic building. Also, to design new additions in a manner that makes clear what is historic and what is new. It's not recommended to design and construct new additions that result in the diminution or loss of the historic character of the resource, including its design, materials, workmanship, location, or setting. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for all additions, it's not appropriate to design a new addition that requires the removal of significant building elements or site features. It's also not appropriate to construct an addition that significantly changes the proportion of built mass to open space on the individual site. Let me get up to the drawings again. Bear with me for 1 second while I catch up my paperwork. All right, I think that I've conveyed most of my concerns here. My concern is not with the general design of the addition. I think that that would be completely appropriate, except that it completely swallows this rear-facing, this gabled rear wing, and that I don't believe meets the standards or guidelines. If there had been a way to, if this had proposed to keep more of these features, to keep a visual record of these features, to let someone walking by be able to figure out that it used to be there, I think that's what we are striving for, and I don't believe that just preserving this one elevation adequately addresses that issue. And the other one was the placement with its closeness to the garage. But I'd like to hear the commission's thoughts on that. So staff is not recommending approval of the application and believes it doesn't meet the standards and guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Commissioners Wilson and myself, again, we're on the review committee. Commissioner Willies, do you want to start this, or would you like me?
Yeah, well, I would certainly agree with staff findings, and my biggest concern was how the rear elements of the house are not discoverable with this addition.
I agree with staff and Commissioner Willis, and especially with the statement that, the overall design of the addition, I think, feels appropriate in terms of its massing and, materials and openings and whatnot, but it is all consuming of the contributing one-story portion of the building, and I think that is clearly inappropriate by the guidelines. And there, as Commissioner Willis stated, there's absolutely no record of the existing one-story portion, other than the one elevation.
I have a question about the view from the right-of-way
Yeah.
in terms of the addition being so close to the garage. Would that be, because of that bump out on that side, it's not clear if you'll be able to see that the wall of the addition would be that close to the garage. Do you think you can? You can't, none of the pictures, and I'm looking at street view, really make that clear or not, that you'd be able to tell
Yeah.
that the house went that close to the...
I do think that this photo I think is helpful, but it's also kind of tough because the driveway slopes up a little bit from 7th. And this is at a view where you're kind of more even with the house, so, if you were over a little bit further, I think you would definitely see back the addition, and you'd see some of that obscurement of the roof. Yes, the roof for the second story will be higher.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it would be above the garage itself. I think there's portions where it may be obscured, but not as much. But 3 feet, I think 3 feet is fairly close. It's not a lot of space in between, but yeah, it's a good question. And something I think we can probably discuss a little bit more during the motion. All right, would the applicant please step forward and state your name and address for the record and sign in? You'll have up to 5 minutes to speak if you'd like to add anything.
Thank you. My name is Bonnie Greenspoon, and I'm from Lewis Greenspoon Architects. I want to start by saying that this is a two-bedroom house on the second floor, and it only has one bathroom up there. So, and it's a bathroom that is shared by both bedrooms. It's not exclusive, it's not accessed only from one bedroom. So in a sense, by modern standards, by today's living standards, it is not a viable house for a family of four, which is my client. Okay, so I want to address some of the things that were most recently talked about. The addition to the house, this was a really difficult nut to crack, so to speak, and taking into account all of the factors, we have been in front of you before with many additions, and taking into all the factors and sensitive to all the factors at stake here, this was the most logical place to put an addition to the house, so that not only was it not visible from the street, but in terms of the way the flow of this, the second floor occurs, that the one-story addition, which is the main thing we're talking about here, and its gable roof, we think was not finished at some point, because obviously that triangular window is not original, and it probably never had a window there. Someone must have finished that space, added the window for light, perhaps even added the dormer. We don't even know if the dormer was original, because the Sanborn maps say one-story addition, not even 1.5-story addition. So we think they added the dormer, which is the south-facing piece, and added that triangular window and finished that space. But the problem with that space is it has a very low ceiling. The ceiling is finished up into the gable. It has a sort of cathedral ceiling, as they say. But, someone not much taller than me barely fits under the ridge of that space. So from a legal standpoint, it is not habitable by code, by current code, and it's not even possible to create that space as a hallway, which could then get us to a second floor addition on the back of the house. So let's talk about a second floor addition on the back of the house. If we were to keep that gable, that original one-story gable, create a passageway, which is not legal because it doesn't have headroom standards by today's building code, and create a two-story addition, that two-story addition, sort of even closer to the garage, would really loom over the garage. And we understand the spatial relationship of the house to the garage, and you have the north wall of the house, and you have the wall, the entry side of the garage. There is a spatial relationship that happens in plan, and we've maintained that, and we have worked hard to maintain that by leaving that space open. But we have to think of that space three-dimensionally as well. So it's not just two-dimensional space that we're talking about in plan that we've maintained, the space of the driveway. If we were to create this two-story addition further back by maintaining that one-story gable, we would have a volume that looms over the garage, and the spatial relationship that you talk about in plan would also be sort of concerning in section, in volume as well. So that's one of the significant reasons why we basically demolished the one-story dormer over it. As well as, we didn't want to, we wanted to create a contiguous second floor, because we're adding a master suite. And logic says that if we have a master suite, you want to be close to your children in the bedrooms, and not have to go down a separate stair, across the house, and then up a separate stair to get to your children in the bedrooms on the second floor of the other portion of the house. And then the other reason why the addition is where it is because there's space on the south side of the house, but then it will be clearly visible from the street. So that made no sense to us, as well as maintaining the screened porch, the existing screened porch, which we have made all efforts to do on the south side of the house. So I'm trying to sort of talk through the reasons why we did things, and just with hopes that you will be understanding that, a two-bedroom house in this day and age is just not a viable house for most families. I'm just going through my notes. Yes, the house is now closer to the garage, again, because of the variables at stake here, where the two-story addition made sense, and we still have the distinction of the garage. We understand that it is garage. We have one volume of garage, we have one volume of house. They are separate. You can still see a gap between them visibly. And we've done our best to do that while still giving the owner a reasonable amount of space on the inside. These are not, these are not huge spaces. The master bedroom is 12 feet by 16 feet, but 16 feet is the biggest area. It's got notches cut out of that. The master bathroom is about the tiniest master bathroom that you could possibly imagine that anyone would ever want in an addition. It's the smallest master bathroom I've ever designed. And, it's not even, barely, closets by today's standards that people would think, oh, it's got, it's not even a huge walk-in closet by that matter. So, we haven't created extravagant spaces, and we've tried our best to give our clients, a mudroom type of space, which is that. Okay, so we've relocated the door, obviously, on the north wall because it is just a hazard right now. It opens partially over the stairway. You've seen the photo, and my client has said adults have tripped walking in that door, and it's just unreasonable for that door. And the reason why we couldn't move the lower part of the stairway is because headroom is an issue if we were to slide that stairway closer to the street, which is towards the east. So we slid the door to the west, and we we relocated the upper half of that stairway further west, which then sort of pushed more of the addition towards the garage, that 3-foot dimension that you see to the garage. Could we take another foot out of that? Yes, we could. Could we take 5 feet out of that? Probably not. So I'm trying to figure out a compromise here when you say, oh, the house is too close to the garage. I'm trying to make some suggestions here of what could be done. I do want to make the point that, we still have a separate garage, and it is distinguishable. As I said, you can see air between those two volumes, and we have tried our best to maintain the spatial relationship, maintain the north wall, maintain the north wall of the existing house, and the spatial relationship where my clients park 2 cars in front of the garage, and doing our best in plan and in volume to leave some space. And with that understanding, I am open to questions. Thank you. My thoughts are a little scattered because I only saw the report 2 hours ago, so my apologies as well.
No problem. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions?
Sure, I'll ask a question.
By all means.
Describe again why it was not your approach to shift the addition to the south. I see that there's the existing screen porch, but that is a newer part of the home. let's just hear why shifting to the south, away from the garage wasn't a solution.
Well, the addition does wrap a little bit to the south, and it was just a matter of, well, maintaining that screen porch. We thought the screen porch was more significant, historically significant, than the west facade of the house and the windows in that west facade. Because of that triangular window, which clearly is not original, and the existing horizontal windows in the kitchen, we thought it made more sense if we had to get rid of something to get rid of those than get rid of the screen porch.
Okay.
Are you saying?
I got it. So you got rid of the west facade and kept the south facade.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So the north wall of the screen porch is maintained, and above that is the wall of the dormer, but we don't know that that dormer was original, so.
That dormer's not original.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why we were comfortable getting rid of that, so.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now open the public hearing portion for 320 South 7th. Again, this is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about the application for this property. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 and entering meeting ID 965-3669-9762. Please indicate you would like to speak by pressing star 9 on your phone.
Can I make a public comment from inside?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, my name is Sean Hoskins. I'm one of the homeowners. And I just wanted to clarify that, we're trying to figure out a way for this to work for our family. And currently, the space above our kitchen is this odd sort of pass-through room. It doesn't have heat, it just like I don't know what they constructed it originally to do or even why they dormered it out. And that when we bought the house in 2013, it had been a rental for years. It had really, they let it go, and we've done considerable work to the property to bring it up to standards. We've worked, I think, in conversation with our architects, but then through Jill or staff as well, to comply with the request. And every request we've responded to and tried to shift, including maintaining the corners of the existing house. That's what that 4-inch indent is, to make sure we maintain the corner of the existing on the northwest side. To keep the south, the south side, the porch, which we think has historical significance in our conversations, even that we've done some pretty cool historical work to get in touch with some of the previous owners. And that does look original. The screened-in porch, someone, the Greaves grandson or something remembers, being there. And the reason why we didn't want to shift the entire addition more to the south, maintaining that pass-through, is, as Bonnie was saying, it's not legal to have that pass-through serve as a hallway. But then even from, we don't want to be the people who, when you're looking by their house, it's big, and then it's small, and then it's big again. Oh, that's weird. We thought that would look more, more of an eyesore, and clearly not of historical, significance, than if we kind of, we're trying to step in, which is kind of as we thought the commission would want, maintaining and indicating where the existing is by leaving some of the roof line, by leaving the corner, and then still, the way that this conversation initially began with my wife and I was, how do we get a room for our now 6-year-old? How do we get a third bedroom upstairs? And the current pass-through room doesn't work, so we're trying to increase the volume in that way. And the only direction we really have to go is south, right? So that's why we couldn't keep the south wall. The only direction we have, to not be as visible from the front is to go toward the south wall. So we've really tried to work within all of the existing regulations. And if there are some small tweaks that need to be made to the design, we would, I think, be interested in that.
Thank you. Ms. Thatcher, do we have any other indicators for public comment online?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. I will close the public hearing portion for 320 South 7th. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Fortner?
Find it. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 320 South 7th Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to construct a 2-story rear addition that extends behind the existing house and over the rear wing as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 5, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for building sites and additions, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, in particular the guidelines for all additions.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner Rockland. I'll open discussion on the motion. Commissioner that would like to start? Or, no? I will say that I have sympathy for this addition because it is a tricky, I think, addition. I think most additions are tricky, but this one, I get that there's a small, there's a 1.5-story portion on the rear, and then immediately adjacent is another, exterior enclosed porch. Both of those are contributing features of the house, and that, working with a 1.5-story addition is difficult whenever you want to add an addition and get the new, ceiling heights that are required by today's code. And so it's really tricky to work around those things. And I understand that there's been concessions made, in the house, and it's been considered, I think pretty thoughtful, I'd say thoughtfully in that it's been really considered on how to get this to work, how to get it to work with the house, with the floor plan, and to be really efficient within those regards. I think the addition proposed, the materials and the form proposed, I think is an appropriate. I think the scale's appropriate. I still think that I'm looking at the guidelines, for removal of distinctive materials, pops up in several of the guidelines where, even though there's been these concessions to preserve, a portion of the contributing structure, the porch, the rest of the, the 1.5-story portion is almost completely gone, and completely, it's not visible that was even there. The 4-inch step is appreciated, but 4 inches is really small in scale to the rest of the addition and what's proposed, for the addition, especially in the height. It's very easy for that to get lost. I don't want to propose an additional, if you did this, then this would be approved. I think that gets into a really tricky place. But I think some things that, were mentioned, if there's, more of a remnant or a replica of, or not replica, but, history of that 1.5-story portion is really, I think, what we would be looking more for in an addition, or at least that's what I would consider, is that, somebody who doesn't know the home could walk up and see, oh, yes, there was a 1.5-story addition here. I can tell this is the original footprint. This is the original portion of the house. It was a 2-story with a 1.5-story on the back, and that has been modified. And I think that's typically what we would expect, and, you can get a sense of the extents even of that, for the most part. At least I would say 75+% of it, you can at least tell some of that form. And that's just a number I'm throwing out. That doesn't mean that every other commissioner agrees with that. So I think, like I said, even though there's been a lot of consideration for this, I still don't think that the addition, by removing the 1.5-story portion, I don't think it meets the guidelines. I'd be interested to hear from other commissioners, though.
Jill, I know that we've approved additions for homes that have like a 1-story or a 1.5 or a 1 3/4 wing, call it, on the back. But can you remind me, like, what are some examples of that? I'm just not, none are coming to mind so much, but do they usually do an addition on the footprint of that, or they're dormers or something, or what is?
A lot of times it's not the addition, that the addition is replacing or enlarging isn't historic.
Yeah.
lot of
This
them,
is
yeah.
unusual where that addition on the back is, historic.
Is intact from,
Yeah.
the period of significance. I can think of a couple of examples. I'm sorry, I don't have addresses on the top of my head, but.
Right.
I can think of several where the half-story has been replaced with a full story.
Okay.
But the footprint remains the same. Or maybe just the first floor of the footprint expands out on one side or something like
Right,
that.
okay, yeah.
Or the other example is when you treat the half-story like you're putting an addition on, like it's riding on a saddle,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
you know?
That
Or
the-
in reality, it's just that gable trim remains. It's not really still there, but when you look at it, it looks like you can still see the original outline.
Yeah, okay.
Listen,
All right, so, I mean, that's what I'm taking issue with in, on the north elevation is, the addition, I believe the term was swallows up that historic piece, and it's just an inappropriate way to deal with the historic, with that contributing, I guess, don't even think about it as an elevation, but just the whole wing. So that's what I'm seeing there. And then with the garage, it's very difficult in a application like this where I totally agree with the applicant, where the three-dimensionality of that relationship is so critical. So how does the back of this addition relate to the garage? And like just a sketch or a 3D drawing, a perspective would have, it might have really hurt in this case, or it might have really helped. It's hard to say, but without it, it's just difficult for for us to visualize without with really a clear vision of exactly how that relationship will work. Because obviously in plan it's something, and then in 3 dimensions it's something else. To me, I feel like I'm trying to picture it, and yes, the 2-story roof is going to be up here and the garage is going to be down here, but it still feels like that relationship is not appropriate with the garage being a historic character defining feature of the lot. If there was I mean, maybe in other circumstances, but where there seems to be other space for the addition to go, it just doesn't seem, it doesn't seem appropriate for it to be so close to the garage when that's not the current condition. I think moving the door, I support that. I support what other commissioners have said, and just in terms of the design of the addition itself is appropriate. It's just how it's relating to the historic features it's not. It's missing the mark. I feel like it is possible to make small changes, or maybe medium changes to get everything that the homeowners want here, and somehow maintain the historic character of this house.
Thank you. Commissioner Willis? Nothing. Commissioner Fortner, anything to add? Okay. We ready for a vote? Okay, all of those in favor of the motion, please say yes. All of those opposed, please say no. No. Right, your motion does not carry. Your application has been denied. That's all. Thank you. On to item F, 5818 West Washington.
West Washington is also in the Old West Side Historic District. This 2.5-story gable fronter features gable corner returns, an ornate full-width front porch, and a first-floor bump out on the west elevation near the rear. It's on the north side of West Washington Street, east of South 7th and west of Mulholland. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to demo a non-historic rear porch and roof deck, add a 1.5-story rear addition and a 1-story bump out on the west side, replace the front porch decking and stairs with matching materials and dimensions, install a new asphalt roof and 3 new skylights, add a new attic window in a new opening in the rear gable, and remove the brick chimney. All right, here's the front of the house. There are 3 houses that are near triplets on West Washington. One of them had this design as the original front porch, and 1 or 2 other ones copied it, and I can't tell you off the top of my head which one had the original front porch. Today, that wouldn't be allowed without some sort of better evidence of what the porch actually looked like, but I think that this might be the original one that the other ones copied. Let's see. So here is the east side of the house and the front. You can see the chimney up there. It's again a good-sized original platted lot. The driveway is shared between this house and the house to the west. This green stuccoed garage goes with this house. It's a pretty cool garage. You don't see that design with stucco very often. There's a 2-track driveway going back to it. There's a bump out on this side of the house. And here we are at that bump out. You can see how the driveway kind of veers around where it splits here to the 2 different garages. And this is the back of, this is the bump out. This is what's behind the bump out. This is a pre-1945 wing of the house. This is the non-original porch and roof deck that's proposed to be removed to make way for an addition. Looking at it from the backyard, these houses on West Washington, many of them have several steps up, sort of a tiered backyard. Some of you will recall that behind Beverly here, Commissioner Willis, it leads out to an alley that some of the houses use, but not this one. This would all be removed. This sliding window is obviously not an original feature of the house. And this door is also not an original back door. It's a replacement door. There's another view. And the house is currently wrapped in aluminum siding. Looking from side to side, let's see, this is looking west. You can see that there's a large addition, a couple houses down here. And this is looking to the east. This house, I believe this is an addition on the back. It's interesting that they have also a screen porch with a roof deck. But it's similarly proportioned and set on the lot to this one. There's the chimney up top. This is a chimney that, it's crazy inside. It's not just a straight chimney on the interior. The architect showed me photos, and it's the most wackadoodle chimney I've ever seen on the interior. It's built at a slant. Site plan, and this is the proposed addition on the back. This is pretty straightforward. We've got corner indents and a little porch that's new. This is a 2-story addition, and this is the other addition, which is a 1-story addition behind that side bump out. Proposed first floor is on the top. This is a little bit hard to read, and the foundation plan is on the bottom. This makes a little bit more sense. This is the 2-story portion on a crawl. This is the 1-story portion. They are adding a circular staircase to gain access to the attic and be able to finish that space into usable space. 3 skylights are proposed, one on the front main block of the house, one on the existing addition, and one on the new, lower, smaller addition. Work on the front of the porch just includes replacing deck boards with matching materials and dimensions. And the historic features of the porch otherwise remain. There's a note here on the front that says, new windows to be Marvin aluminum clad ultimate windows, new skylights to be Velux, although these windows are not proposed to be changed. Here's the addition. You can see we've got the main block, the existing, and then a step down. I'll have to look at my notes. I can't read this well enough to see. It's a pretty small change, but again, this is another one of those situations where there's really not enough headroom to bring it down any lower and have it meet code.
7 inches.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is new little porch going up into the back. And here's the new rear elevation on the back with the little porch. This 1-story wing tucks in very nicely, staff thinks, I think, behind the bump out. There's some corner returns here, but no one's going to mistake this addition for any historic part of the house, and the windows are a very modern design. It's still appropriate for the back of the house. This is the east elevation. Again, very straightforward. The window proportions don't match exactly, but the windows are compatible with the rest of the house. All right, I have read to you numbers 2, 5, 9, and 10 already. Guidelines for additions. I read some of these two also. I've read constructing a new addition so there's the least possible loss of historic materials. Located on the back. Make it clear what's new and what's original. You should design additional stories when required for the new use that are set back from the wall plane and are as inconspicuous as possible when viewed from the street. Read all of these already. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it's not appropriate to design a new addition that requires the removal of significant building elements or site features, or constructing an addition that significantly changes the proportion of built mass to open space on the individual site. Let me check my notes and see what I've missed. The house is currently 1,487 square feet, has no modern additions. The proposed new floor area is 35% of the original, and the proposed new footprint is an increase of 26%. So those are well within the design guidelines. Cladding is currently aluminum siding. The underlying siding type is unspecified. The additions are proposed to be clad, additions, just one addition, in 4-inch fiber cement lap siding with boral window and door trim. New roof will match the existing asphalt roof. I had a note in here that the front porch repairs are appropriate if the graspable handrail is wood, and the suggested motion contains this condition. At the site visit, the applicant was questioning whether there would be some longer-lasting material for a simple handrail that might be appropriate. And I said to propose it and bring a sample to the meeting if you don't want to do wood. So staff believes that the proposed work is compatible in size, materials, and composition to the historic house and neighborhood and meets the applicable standards and guidelines. There was a question that the review committee will want to get into about the closeness of the addition to the driveway. And I know that the architect is here and submitted, you guys may have seen revisions. I have not seen those because they came in after I was already gone. But I believe that she'll be handing something out that we can also look at.
Okay.
So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, myself, Commissioner Epperson, and Commissioner Willis are on the review committee report. Do you like?
Yeah. I would say it was, one thing that I really noticed is how close the new addition would be to the driveway and there was a car actually in the driveway. And so imagining opening the door and how that would impact the amount of usable space was definitely a concern that I had.
Yeah, so I think overall the addition, the scale and the location is appropriate. I think that even the one-story portion that sits right behind the bump out was still, I think, considered in that it's also recessed from the bump out, so it's narrower. And then the rear addition itself is minimal and lower than the existing two-story portion. So I think it's appropriate in size and scale and relation, also material and window placement. The closeness to the house or to the driveway and the garage were really the things that I think we looked at the most. And I do see that there were revised plans that were submitted. It looks like there's been some dimensional changes. I was trying to look at that during the staff report. So I'll be interested to hear from the applicant at that point. Because looking at the revised drawings, it looks more comfortable. It's still, I think, pretty tight. But at least I think there's been some modifications that will alleviate. So for instance, the image that we're looking at on the screen, the refuse receptacles there, and that green downspout, it appeared that the addition was going to come out almost to the edge of where that green downspout, extension was sitting, all the way to the left on
this
that one in the back there. Which was really close to that two-track driveway. So that was really our main concern. And then again, the stairs would be coming out a little bit further and potentially impede, operation of being able to even get out of the car. So we did talk with the applicant at that time, about, some potential modifications with it, which I believe were addressed. So again, I'll be interested to hear from the applicant on that. And then the wood handrail we also discussed, and I see in the revised applications, they've addressed that as well. And I think it looks like a pretty creative solution. So with that, would the applicant please step forward and state your name and address for the record? And you'll have up to 5 minutes to add anything to the review report.
Teresa Angelini, and I'm architect for the owners, Audra Felices and Michael Myers. I've got copies. I'm sorry to have passed this out at the
That's
last
okay.
minute, but I can give you all copies. And I hit it with a yellow highlighter just to accent.
Thank you. Here, why don't I pass them out while you talk? No problem.
Thanks, Commissioner.
So these, the folded ones are the original site plan.
Okay, so one of each of these.
Thanks, Commissioner Roscoe.
So there's a single page that I'll just touch on real quickly. We realized that our site plan was not totally accurate because when we first started this project, we weren't really concentrating on an addition towards the side of the driveway. We were adding off the back, and then some things switched around. So anyway, this first site plan just shows the intention, if we were to stick with the original plan, we'd move the relocated air conditioner unit to the east side of the house instead of the west side. And then in terms of where the car parks, we're showing some pavers installed between the two tracks, just at the area where the car parks. And this is a family that rides their bicycles a lot and has one car and doesn't park the car in the garage because it doesn't really fit in that small garage, but useful for bikes and other things. So once we realized how tight we were to that two-track, then the next pile that you have that has staples in it, or has stapled in the corner, we've cut the mudroom addition back just a tad. So if you look on page A100 on the floor plan, the change that's occurred is that we've moved the door into the mudroom like 3 feet so that it lines up with the side of the closet. It leaves a very small back porch. We inset the back steps in, so we've just incrementally just squeezed things in just a little bit. So compared to the original submittal, we're talking inches here, but for the original submittal, the addition was 9 inches to the two-track, and the railing was actually 4 inches to the two-track. So with the revision, we're at 1'5" to the two-track from the addition, and the railing is at 11 inches. So we have been able to tighten it up a little. And then the area just also reduced just very slightly, so the footprint's down from, let's see, the total area's down from 35.2 to 34.6, and the footprint is down from 25.9 to 24.6. So it's small, but it was a small addition to start with. So, we received feedback from Joe Thatcher as we've gone through this. We've made some changes along the way. So, the back addition, it's another one of these houses that has that 1.5, story addition on the back. The mystery of what, it wasn't finished to start with because the finishes inside that room are all new. The sliding door on the back of it to that deck is obviously newer than 1945. But, we can't find any other documentation to say it wasn't there. It seems like some kind of attic that was finished at some point. So it's still, kind of tight ceiling space inside, but it's usable. And so, we're still just, stepping it in ever so slightly to have that kind of telescoping addition off the back. And then the side addition for the mudroom, allows them, with the family of 4, to have some kind of storage space when you come in, because otherwise there's not much in this house, and it's a Michigan basement and pretty tight. And on the second floor, the removal of the chimney actually allows a second bathroom to be located on the second floor. And it's not a dedicated primary master bathroom, it's just a second bathroom. And that way, and that's only really possible because of the removal of the chimney. And I should have brought a photo of that chimney because it is really quite a circuitous route to get it up through the back of the house. And then once the chimney's removed in the attic space, they can have a small window at the back, just a little square window to get some light in from that side. And the skylight and the main part of the attic is really for egress, because that's not intended as a sleeping room, it's office, but, you know, if somebody had a slumber party up there or whatever, you'd want to have egress, and those front windows, we know, would not be a popular choice to change with the Historic District Commission, and we agree with that. So that skylight just gives some egress. The front handrail, we also responded to the site visit, and we're designing it at a height that meets the building code, and then just have a little connector to go back to the porch post, because we can't really extend it out at the height that would terminate into the porch post, because that'd be like 24 inches high and not really useful. So I think, you know, we've tried to keep things modest and in keeping with the historic district standards. And I don't know if there are any questions that anyone has, or...
I see there's some structural work in the basement. What is the purpose of that?
In the basement, we are trying to carry the load of the spiral stair
Okay.
down through, so kind of transferring that. There's one, you know, it's one of those basements that has like a tree trunk, you know, for the center post in the basement. So we don't think that's going to carry it otherwise. So.
Okay.
And just to be clear, the modifications that were made with the smaller footprint and the adjustments, that's what's being proposed, correct?
That's what's being proposed.
Okay.
And again, I apologize for the late
No, that's
entry
okay.
there, but
And then those are concrete pavers that are being proposed between the two track.
yes. And that gives enough room to park the car and get out and open the door on the other side and get past it. So.
Okay, so you're showing the car intentionally off of the two-track on
Ye-
paver? Yeah.
yes.
I got it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in order to make that,
Right.
because it is a funky, like, in the image that's shown on the left, it is quite a turn right at a certain point to square up to the garage door.
Right, no, that makes sense.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Right, I'll now open this hearing to the public for, 818 West Washington. This is an opportunity for persons to speak for up to 3 minutes about this application. Public comment may be made by calling 877-853-5247 and entering meeting ID 965-3669-9762. Please press star 9 if you'd like to speak about this application. No callers? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Rackland?
I can do it.
Thank you.
Take a deep breath.
For the long one? Just need to find it. Possible motion. Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 818 West Washington Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to construct a 1.5-story rear addition and a 1-story bump out on the west side, replace the front porch decking and stairs with matching materials and dimensions, install a new asphalt roof and 3 new skylights, and a new attic window in a new opening in the rear gable, and remove the brick chimney on the following condition: that the graspable handrail is wood. The work as conditioned is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 5, 9, and 10, the guidelines for building site, as well as the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, in particular the guidelines for residential accessory structures and paved areas.
What?
Didn't sound right.
Did I read that right?
You read it right, I
So in
don't,
particular, the guidelines for additions?
Yeah,
Okay.
just take out accessory structures.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll scratch out residential accessory structures and paved areas and insert the guidelines for new additions.
Thank you.
Anyone
Is there a
care to
second on the
support
motion?
that?
Second.
all right, moved by Commissioner Rockland, seconded by Commissioner Fortner. Is there discussion on the motion? I'll just reiterate, I appreciate the changes, or I think that, or the applicant addressing some of the issues that we noticed on the site visit, and making, some small concessions. Again, the additions are, I think, are definitely tough, especially on these, more narrow sites and when they're located directly adjacent to driveways like this. Even those small, incidental, or small indents, I think make a huge difference, especially for this one. I think the handrail solution, like I said, it's simple, but I think it's creative. It gets, if ever, all the commissioners, I think, saw what was proposed.
Can you explain it?
It's, so the handrail on the front porch that is being proposed needs to, of course, meet code standards of 34 inches high, or in between 34 and 36. But the way that the porch is designed with the decorative columns,
Okay.
the handrail at that height would come up above where there's a flat portion for that handrail to actually connect to.
Okay.
So instead of taking it just at the straight diagonal all the way up, it's been stopped, I don't know, approximately a foot, maybe a little bit less, before it hits that, and then a smaller or lower straight portion
Yeah.
to go back. So I think it's clear that it's not original, but that it's designed to meet code. The addition of the pavers, I think, in between the two-track, while we like to see as much of the two-track maintained, I think that at least is distinguished between what's new and what's existing. It's easily removable, so I don't have, and I think the addition overall meets the guidelines. So. Any other comments?
I agree
Thoughts?
with what's been said.
Okay,
Yeah.
on to a vote? Or do you have anything to
No, I'm
add?
just agreeing on the two-track, the having the pavers. It's a good solution to that space.
Okay. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All of those opposed, please say no. All right, your motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please note that you must apply for any required permits from the city before beginning work. Thank you. All right, on to item F6, 118 West Liberty.
West Liberty is part of the Shaberly block that stretches from 112 to 122 West Liberty in the Main Street Historic District. It is a row of three-story Italianate commercial buildings that were built beginning in 1866. Upper floors were originally used as residences, buildings of stone basements and 1-foot thick exterior brick walls. Some of the buildings were later expanded 22 feet north into the alley, leaving only a walkway dividing the row from the adjacent building. Windows on the upper floors of the front facade have segmented arches on the second floor and round arches on the third, and the first occupant of 118 West Liberty was George Huss Boots and Shoes. The site is on West Liberty, east of South Ashley and west of South Main Streets, and the applicant seeks HDC approval to replace 3 mullioned storefront display windows with a wood 4-sash folding window system. I'm sorry, if you'll bear with me for 1 second, I want to promote Chris Majewski into the meeting. All right. All right, going through the photos, I don't have a whole lot of them. I mean, it's the storefront in the middle of the block. The 3 windows have been there since, there's a short history in the application materials that's thorough. This was an earlier remodel. None of this storefront is original, with the possible exception of the placement of the door openings, these two doors. Unfortunately, this whole block, we have very sketchy evidence on what any of these storefronts originally looked like. We've got some great photos of, things like there's a famous one of a horse-drawn beer wagon full of barrels in front of what's now the alley bar, but there's a big awning covering the storefront, so you can't see it. Just disappointing photos like that. So, in modern times, the West End Grill and the Old Town next to it, and this, which Bellachow Grange storefront, were all remodeled with this slightly ye olde look, but compatible with the building. But we don't know what it originally looked like. So right now there are these three windows, which is really not super desirable on a storefront where you want a lot of transparency and you want people walking by to be able to see in and see what's going on. So I'm pretty happy that this application came in the way it did. This is looking to the west, West End Grill, Old Town. This is from the interior. You can see that there's plenty of room for more glazing on these windows. That's not there right now. And the proposal is to put in 4 panels, and the etched glass that's present on the existing windows would be replicated on these windows. I'm assuming to tie them in better with the etched glass that's stenciled onto the doors. And really, it fills the space. I believe these windows are in pairs, 2 pairs of folding windows. It's really straightforward, 3 here, the 4-window system here. This is an example of that window system on another building. And I think that this is completely appropriate for this storefront, since it's not a historic storefront and the windows are wood, which I do appreciate. And the profiles, seem compatible with the storefront. And going through the standards and guidelines, I've read to you 1, 2, 9, and 10. The Secretary of the Interior Guidelines for storefronts recommend designing and constructing a new storefront when the historic storefront is completely missing. It may be an accurate restoration using historical, pictorial, and physical documentation, or maybe a new design that's compatible with the size, scale, and material of the historic building. New design should be flush with the facade and be kept as simple as possible. It's not recommended to introduce a new design that's incompatible in size, scale, material, and color. I think that that's it for the staff report. Staff does believe that these are compatible windows and surrounding historic, compatible with the non-historic wood storefront and the surrounding historic district, and recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thescher. Again, Commissioners Wilson and myself were on the review committee. I agree with staff's report. I think that this is actually a nice solution to what is currently there for the storefront. I think, there's been some consideration in a number of manners to, really minimize the impact of the existing storefront, even though it's non-original and we have clear evidence that it's not, that it was a replication of some sort. But that there's, replication of trim that's there, so to make it, at least compatible with what is existing. The etched glass, I think, is a nice touch to, even though that these aren't going to be the rounded arch top windows, there's at least an homage to, some consideration to the modern application that still is compatible with the existing. So I think overall, I'd say it's appropriate. Commissioner Willis, anything to add?
No, I agree with staff report, and it's great to see that element of vitality added back to that downtown block.
Definitely. All right. Would the applicant we have an applicant in the room and online as well. So you've promoted the applicant, correct, to
Well,
Zoom? Or no?
Can you tell me if Mike Karkowski is with you guys?
Oh,
Mike is part of the architect.
Okay, great. I
Okay.
just wanted to know whether to promote him or not.
all right.
We don't let just anybody into our meetings.
I'll give Jill a minute here.
Okay, I think Chris is ready to.
Okay.
go here.
Chris, whenever you're ready, if you'll just state your name and address for the record, and if you'd like to add anything to the staff report, you have up to 5 minutes to do so. And we also have an applicant in the room, so if you'd like to speak as well.
Yeah, I'd just like I'm Chris Majewski with Majewski Architects. My address is 3218 North Clark Street. I'd just like to say thank you for the comments from both the staff report as well as the commissioners. We really tried to both maintain the historic character of the block while sort of bringing in that sort of life and vitality to the building itself as well as the block overall. So if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them, but otherwise, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? No. Nope. Did you have anything you'd like to add, or?
I was here just in case you needed any information potentially.
Okay.
I was told that they were going to try to be able to get that music, but not necessarily like it, so.
Okay.
More of a note than presence.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, if you don't need it from me, then I'm good.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll now open the public hearing portion for the 118 West Liberty application. Please press star 9.
Yeah, Mike is trying to get in. Sorry, Mike, I'm trying to promote you to panelist. Oh, here you come. There we go.
There we go.
Hi,
Thank
Mike.
you. I don't have anything to add. I agree with everything that's been said. So I just did want to acknowledge that we were here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any callers that would like to make any public comment on 118 West Liberty?
We do not.
All right, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a commissioner that would like to make a motion? Commissioner Willis? Thank you.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 118 West Liberty Street, a contributing property in the Main Street Historic District, to replace 3 mullioned storefront display windows with the wood 4-sash folding window system as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for storefronts and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for storefronts.
Support.
All right, moved by Commissioner Willis, seconded by Commissioner Rockland. Any discussion on the motion?
No, I agree with what's been said. Yeah.
Okay. That's it? Same? Me too. All right, we'll vote. All of those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All of those opposed, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Please remember to submit for any permits before beginning work on your project. Thank you. All right. Thanks for sticking with us.
The
All right.
first application is always at the end.
Yes. On to item G, new business. We received the 2023 HDC meeting calendar.
Yeah.
Anything significant?
So on this calendar, the meetings that are a little bit wonky are the August 2023 meeting. That's because of primaries. We could have chosen to go a week earlier than usual or a week later than usual, so I chose a week later. We're on the 3rd Thursday instead of the 2nd in August.
Okay.
If anyone feel strongly about that, we could reconsider, but we can't have the second Thursday.
Okay.
There is a November meeting proposed because there's not election conflict this year.
Do you need sorry to interrupt, but do you need an asterisk after, am I not seeing it?
Yeah, we need an asterisk after August 17th.
After the 17th, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
There is a November 9th meeting in 2023.
Okay.
If you guys would rather not have a November meeting, that's up to you. We usually move it because of elections. That's not a conflict this year. This meeting would have been half as long had we had a November meeting. And I hate to make people wait a whole another
Yeah.
month. Unfortunately, 2 of the people tonight got their applications in like a couple days late and had to wait 2 months.
Yeah.
So that's,
No, I think having the November meeting is good. I think it really, to close that, just missing a month actually affects a
yeah,
lot.
okay. We may hit in future years, we may hit November
Right.
elections again
Right.
and have to cancel it, but, yeah, okay. So you guys do need to vote on this calendar. Somebody make a motion to approve the calendar.
I make a motion to approve the calendar as proposed.
Second, all right, moved by Commissioner Fortner, seconded by Commissioner Willis. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Please say yes. Yes.
Thank
Right.
you,
The calendar is approved as presented.
thank you, thank you.
All right. Where's my agenda? Item H, approval of minutes. We received the October 13 minutes. Is that the only month that we were missing?
Yes, because we,
We-
oh,
Is there September?
I thought there was one missing from what we reviewed last.
I think it's just a September meeting. Or maybe-
I will make a note to Mia to
Okay.
check on whether or not you guys have approved the September
Okay,
minutes.
maybe they were. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, or do you need a couple of minutes? A little bit. Good? Okay. The minutes are approved as presented. And on to item I, reports from the commissioners. Any commissioner have a report they'd like to share? Nope. Item J, assignments for the review committee, Monday, January 9th at noon for the January 12th meeting. Anybody? You can do that one?
You can do that? Okay.
I can join.
Okay, we've got Kathy
Okay.
and Dave, thank you.
Sweet. That was easy.
Yeah.
Or we could just assign it to people who aren't here.
It's always an
Limited.
option.
On to K, reports from staff.
I don't have anything significant
Okay.
to report. Planning has a new deputy manager. Their name is Hank Kelly. Hank is coming to us from the city of Detroit, where they were an advisor to a city council member, and before that, a transportation planner for the city of Grand Rapids. I don't know that you all will ever run into Hank, but if you do, tell them that you're on the HDC and say kind things about me.
Always.
That's it for staff.
Are you still compiling the report of work that's been done throughout the year?
I'm
Is
not,
that
well, yes, I will for the retreat.
Okay.
Is that what you mean? Like that?
No, we used to have
I know.
included, it was just a nice little thing to look
I
at, but
know.
I don't know if,
That
I know
was
there were
a,
some
um,
issues with,
That was a
The new platform.
track it thing, and since we don't track it for Energov, Energov doesn't seem to do that.
okay.
At least we haven't figured out how yet. We've got to
Okay.
request it, but it's been there for about 6 months, so.
It's nice to just see every now and then, just to
I
see all
know.
the other work that doesn't come through.
I know.
But
I know.
What's been coming through? Just, can you give us a verbal report, anything of note?
I haven't hit anything wacky lately.
Yeah.
There are still, this time of year, it's a lot of furnaces and water heaters. We seem to be done with air conditioner season.
Mindsets.
you know, non-original windows being replaced, repairs. There's always lots of repairs to decking and guardrails and things like that. But yeah.
Are you staff approving solar panels at this point, or have you? Didn't we approve the staff approval of, like, rear elevate, non-front?
No.
No, we didn't.
We
Okay.
talked about
We talked about it.
staff approving it, and I did not get that to this meeting, because
Okay.
that was 2 months ago that we talked about it.
Right, okay.
So I still have to propose that as a staff
Okay.
approval. But I haven't had any solar applications recently. I think this is their quiet season as well,
Okay.
or at least quieter than
Yeah. Who
April.
wants to be up on the roof in December?
Yeah,
Were there some other things that we talked about as staff approval?
there are. I have a little list.
Okay.
And I'm going to propose one big staff approvals memo.
Got it. Sounds great. Okay.
All right.
On to item L, concerns of commissioners. Any commissioner would like to share a concern? Nope. And then on to item, Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I have
You're
one
fine.
more staff item.
yeah,
The Michigan Historic Preservation Network Conference this year is on Mackinac Island in May. And I know not everybody's here, but I just wanted to give you a warning. If you're interested in going, I don't know if we will be able to send people, but we usually can send one or two. So let me know early and often if you're interested,
okay.
so that I can get that cleared. I'm
What are the
planning to go.
dates, do you know?
The dates are.
It's usually the same, weekend and week, isn't it?
The dates are Wednesday, May 10 is when it starts.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's more or less 11th, 12th, 13th
Okay.
are the main days.
On Mackinac Island. Nice.
Okay, sorry, that's it.
Thank you. On to item N, communications. And anything we received was for hearings, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
No, there was something regarding the affordable housing that's going up next to Braun Court. Yes.
Yes.
And it was just a request that the owner, or no, that the city somehow incorporate the Braun Court buildings into the project.
Or-
But it's a separate, I think, it's a good concept, but I think
Yeah.
that the issue is that those are owned privately, correct?
Well, there are some people that are interested in Braun Court becoming a historic district.
Okay.
And I think that was a proponent of that, she was a proponent of that as well.
Yep.
This was,
This was 6 weeks ago, a month ago, I think, that this was emailed, forwarded to you guys, I believe, by Mia.
I'm
But
like
you're all looking
vaguely
kind of blank,
recalling.
so-
I
Is it-
don't know if I'm recalling or.
Is it in the
Mia
packet?
sent it yesterday, I believe.
Really?
So she sent it as a supplement to the packet
Yeah.
yesterday.
Mhm.
Got it, got it,
Oh,
got it.
I'll have to go back
Okay.
and look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not relevant to any of the projects. I think it was just bringing up.
It's some
Braun
information.
Court as an issue is an interesting
Yeah.
issue
Okay.
to talk about.
Sorry, I was confused. I wasn't aware that went out yesterday in the packet, so.
I believe that I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, you did, because yeah.
Is there anything actionable that we should maybe put on next month's agenda to discuss for it? Or is it, we should read it and maybe,
Well, I don't think from the letter, but if Braun Court is being talked about as a historic district, I mean, what can we do to support that?
yeah.
I have some information if you want me to pass it along
Yeah.
to the commission.
It'd be
That'd be great.
interesting to talk about as
Yeah.
Yeah.
an agenda item next month.
Got it.
Thank you. Right, I believe that's it. I now adjourn the December 8th, 2022 HDC meeting.
Wow, thanks, guys.
Nice.